On my wedding day, on the globally broadcast red carpet, I got slapped across the face by the groom's sister, and my husband just coldly adjusted his cufflinks. That night, I moved out of the marital suite, cutting off all emotion. A month later, I teamed up with a lawyer and exploited a loophole to save my father's company. 3 months after that, I pushed the divorce papers in front of him myself, took everything legally mine, and walked away for good. My name is Lily Chin. Today, I got married in the U.S. at a top-tier estate. White roses carpeted the red carpet, and cameras flashed everywhere. It was being broadcast worldwide. I thought this was the start of a dream. I was wrong. This was a public execution. I linked arms with my father, walking toward the man at the end of the red carpet, Ethan Wright, my fiancé. No, my buyer. Halfway there, a woman stepped onto the red carpet. It was Ethan's sister, Ivy. She smiled sweetly, her voice broadcasting through the headset to the entire crowd. Sister-in-law, you look so pretty today. Like a parasitic bird finally perched on the golden branch of a bankrupt family. Silence fell across the venue. My father's hand trembled. Before I could even react, slap. A sharp, burning pain across my cheek. Ivy waved her hand like she'd swatted something dirty. Every camera zoomed in on my rapidly reddening face. My head was turned. My veil crooked. Live. Worldwide live. I looked at Ethan. He stood at the altar, expressionless. He even slowly raised a hand to adjust his diamond cufflink, as if this were some boring performance. Ivy, cut it out, he said calmly, without a hint of anger. Ivy ignored him, leaning toward me, into the mic in front of me. In a voice everyone could hear, she asked, Lily Chin, tell everyone, are you marrying for the right fortune or for the title of Mrs. Right? My throat tightened. I glanced at my father's pale face, at my mother's tearful eyes in the audience. I could not back down. I spoke into the microphone, voice trembling but clear, not for money. Ha! Ivy laughed loudly, exaggerated. Then, scattered chuckles started from the audience. Soon, they spread like a plague. The entire estate was filled with suppressed, mocking laughter. They were laughing at me for overstepping, laughing at me for being a woman yet pretending to uphold virtue. Ethan finally moved. He picked up the mic on the altar, looked at me, and with a cold curve on his lips, said 2 English words, love? His gaze was an ice pick, piercing through the last of my illusions. Boom! Something inside me snapped. This wasn't a wedding. It was an auction. I was the exhibit. They were pricing my dignity, my family's shame. And Ethan, he was the ruthless auctioneer. The priest stood awkwardly. Ethan put down the mic, saying to him, continue. Grandpa's watching. For his grandfather's sake. The humiliation had to go on. I stood at the midpoint of the red carpet, face burning, heart frozen. The cameras were like countless eyes, licking at my disgrace. I was the world's biggest joke. My father tried to pull me away. I gently withdrew my hand. I did not run. I lifted my hands and straightened my veil. I squared my shoulders, ignoring the burning pain on my cheek. Step by step, I walked through those mocking eyes, toward the end of the red carpet, toward Ethan, toward this hell I had just awakened to resist. The red carpet was long. Each step felt like walking on knives. But I made it. I stood before Ethan. A flicker of surprise crossed his eyes for a split second, then returned to indifference. The priest hurriedly recited the vows, like reading a contract that had nothing to do with me. Ethan Wright, do you take Lily Chin to be your wife? I do. He answered quickly, without emotion. Lily Chin, do you take Ethan Wright to be your husband? I looked into his eyes. Handsome, but cold. The crowd held its breath, waiting to see if I'd crumble. I took a deep breath, clear and steady. I do. The priest exhaled. Rings were exchanged. Ethan slid the enormous diamond onto my finger. It fit, but he pushed hard. The ring tightened at my knuckle, a little painful, like a cold shackle locking instantly. It was my turn. I picked up the men's ring and slid it onto his long, cool finger. Now, the groom may kiss the bride. Ethan leaned in. His lips brushed mine, less than a second, then he pulled away, like stamping a seal. Applause erupted. Warm. False. I heard mockery. The ceremony ended. The reception began. Ivy carried a champagne glass over, linking her arm with Ethan's. smiling at me. Congrats, sister-in-law. Your wish came true. She exaggerated the last words, then drained her glass herself. Ethan said nothing, letting her cling. I was left alone. People kept congratulating Mrs. Right. That title stabbed me like a needle. Wedding night. We returned to the Wright family's penthouse in New York. Vast, luxurious, cold. Ethan went straight to the master bedroom, stopped at the door, and pointed down the hall. You sleep in the guest room. Your clothes are in the closet. I froze. He loosened his tie and looked back at me, eyes evaluating me like merchandise. Lily, don't look like a victim. This position? You and your father begged for it. A deal comes with its responsibilities. He paused, tone colder. Don't forget, your father's failing company? It's hanging by my hand. Without me, he'd have jumped off a building. Blood rushed to my head. Humiliation washed over me again. But this time, I did not tremble. I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze. Ethan, even a deal has limits. I will not accept personal humiliation. He chuckled like I'd told a joke. Personal? Respect? He stepped closer, towering over me, oppressive, sitting in the seat of Mrs. Right. The only thing you need to do is play the part. Respect? You don't deserve to speak of it. He turned, entered the master bedroom, and closed the door. The loud slam echoed through the empty apartment. I stood there, fingers brushing the cold diamond on my ring. Tight, couldn't take it off. But in that moment, somewhere inside me, something clicked shut too. For him, for this marriage, for all my ridiculous illusions. I turned and walked toward the guest room. I didn't cry. I began to take inventory, calmly. This marriage was a cage, but I couldn't tear it open yet. My father's company was still in his hands. Endure it? No. I had already pushed back once, weakly, but I had. A real counterattack would require capital, and right now, I had nothing. So starting tonight, I would build my own capital. Step 1, psychological separation, complete. From now on, he was no longer my husband. He was my opponent, my stepping stone. I took out my phone and deleted every memo filled with rosy wedding fantasies. Then I created a new document and titled it, Escape Plan. The next morning, Ivy showed up early. She walked in like it was her own place, unlocking the door with her fingerprint. Morning, sis-in-law. Awake already? Mom asked me to take you shopping, get you a few decent outfits. You represent the right family now. She called me sis-in-law, but her eyes scanned me like I was hired help. The refusal reached my lips. Then I remembered what Ethan had said the night before and swallowed it back down. No head-on collisions. I went with her to the most exclusive luxury stores on Fifth Avenue. The sales associates saw Ivy and immediately straightened, all smiles and deference. Ivy picked up a pair of diamond earrings and held them next to my ear. These are nice. They'll just about cover it up. Her finger lightly brushed the spot on my cheek where I'd been slapped the day before. The clerk stared fixedly at the floor, pretending not to hear a thing. I took the earrings and tried them on in the mirror. The diamonds sparkled, making the faint mark on my cheek even more visible. Like them? Put it on my brother's tab, Ivy said with a grin. I looked at my reflection and smiled back. Thank you. They're beautiful. I endured it. She leaned closer, her voice low enough that only I could hear. Lily, this is just the beginning. In this circle, you have to learn to kneel if you want to survive with even a shred of dignity. Understand? I fastened the earrings, turned to face her, and replied evenly. I understand. Thank you for the guidance, sister-in-law. She raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting that response. That afternoon, my mother-in-law arrived, the real Mrs. Right, regal, severe, eyes sharp with scrutiny. She sat on the sofa and made me stand. We know the situation with the Chin family. Since you've married in, you'll learn the rules. Rule number 1, the Wright family's reputation is not your personal reputation. When necessary, reputation can be sacrificed, but core assets must never be touched. Not a penny. She was warning me, behave yourself. Don't think marrying into the Wrights meant easy gains. Family dinner this weekend. The old man wants to see you. Prepare yourself. She stood up and left without sparing me another glance. Family dinner. The old man, the patriarch of the Wright family, my final judge. That night, Ethan came home late, smelling of alcohol. He passed the guest room and noticed the light under the door. He stopped. "Family dinner, don't embarrass me," he said coldly. "Remember, our marriage is a transaction based on non-interference. Don't expect my help. And don't expect sincerity." Then he walked away. I sat on the bed, staring at the neon glow of New York outside the window. For the first time, the urge to leave was crystal clear. I wanted out of this hell, now. Immediately, I jumped up, pulled a small suitcase from the closet, and started throwing things in. I didn't own much. It filled quickly. I dragged the suitcase into the living room. Ethan wasn't asleep. He was sitting on the couch, drinking. When he saw me and the suitcase, his expression darkened instantly. "What? One slap and you can't take it? Running away?" He swirled his glass. "Lily, if you leave, your father goes bankrupt tomorrow. You sure about that?" My hand clenched around the suitcase handle. His words were like a bucket of ice water, killing my impulsive fire, not breaking me, but forcing clarity. I let go. The suitcase fell onto the carpet with a dull thud. I looked at him and said slowly, "I just think the guest room air isn't great. I want to switch rooms." I turned and walked toward another guest room, the one farthest from the master bedroom. This time, I truly left the marital suite, and I left behind the last trace of expectation I'd had of him as a husband. A counterattack? No. This was a strategic retreat. Before I had ammunition, preserving myself was victory. The day before the family dinner, the old man suddenly summoned me, not to the main estate, but to his rehabilitation villa in the suburbs. His health was poor. He lived there year-round. He was thin, but his eyes were razor-sharp. He didn't ask about the wedding. He didn't mention my family's company. He only said this, "Lily, Ethan is my grandson. I know him well. The way he obtains things is usually by destroying them or imprisoning them. Which do you think you are to him?" A chill ran down my spine. After leaving the villa, I didn't return to the penthouse. I asked the driver to take me to a townhouse in the city, one where Ethan had occasionally let me stay before we married. I had left a few old belongings there. The house had been empty for a long time. It smelled of dust. In the bedroom drawer, I found my old phone. After the wedding, Ethan had replaced it with the latest model, saying the old one looked cheap and telling me to throw it away. I hadn't thought much of it. On impulse, I charged the phone. Amazingly, it still had power. I turned it on. No password. The photo gallery was empty, but I tapped into a hidden folder. Password required. I tried my birthday, wrong. His birthday, wrong. After a moment's hesitation, I entered the date we first met. The folder opened. Inside were videos and photos spanning 5 full years. Starting from my college days, me reading in the library, captured from the side, laughing with friends in a cafe, rushing to the subway in my internship suit, even watering plants on the balcony of my rented apartment, all taken secretly, hidden angles, crystal clear. The most recent photo was from my wedding day, the exact moment Ivy slapped me on the red carpet. My head turned, my expression shocked and humiliated. There was only one video, dated half a month ago, during wedding preparations. I tapped play. The footage showed Ethan's study. He was drunk, staring straight into the camera, eyes wild. "Lily Chin," he said, "I've been watching you for 5 years. You're like a carefree little bird. So ordinary, yet so damn blinding. When your family went bankrupt and your father came begging me, I was thrilled. Do you know why?" He leaned closer to the screen, smiling twistedly. "Because only then would you walk obediently into my cage. I dragged you down from the clouds and crushed you into the dirt. Now I'm the only one who can give you money, give your family a way to survive. Do you hate me? Hate me. I want your eyes on me alone, even if it's hatred. Love?" He burst out laughing, choking on his own breath. "What is love?" "Control. Making sure you can never leave my grasp. I like you, so I'm turning you into my private possession. Stay in this hell with me." The video ended. A chill spread through my entire body. My fingers trembled as I gripped the phone. This wasn't indifference. It was worse, twisted love. Absolute control wrapped in the name of love. Soft footsteps sounded behind me. I spun around. Ethan stood in the doorway. I hadn't heard him arrive. His face was pale. He must have realized I'd come here and followed me. When he saw the old phone in my hand, his pupils shrank sharply. "You saw it," he said hoarsely. I raised the phone, the screen facing him. This is what you call liking me, Ethan? This isn't affection, it's obsession. You're terrified of losing control, terrified of anything slipping out of your grasp, including me. He took a step toward me, panic flickering in his eyes, something I'd never seen before. Lily. I can explain. Explain what? I stepped back. Explain how you surveilled me for 5 years? How you used my family's crisis to force me into submission? How you stood there at our wedding and watched me be humiliated just to break me completely? I shook my head. Tears finally fell, but not from heartbreak. From fear. From revulsion. Your love makes my skin crawl. He reached for my arm. Don't go. I yanked myself free with all my strength. Don't touch me. He froze. His hand hung in midair. For the first time, I saw something like helplessness on his face. I wiped away my tears, picked up my bag and the old phone, walked past him toward the door. This time, he didn't stop me. He didn't say another word. I stepped out of the villa into blinding sunlight. My body was shaking, but the massive weight that had crushed my chest for so long finally shattered. Love, once the bargaining chip I'd longed for, had become the most grotesque shackle of all. And now, it no longer worked. Because I wasn't afraid anymore. I knew who my enemy was, and what he was. I didn't return to the penthouse. Instead, I rented a high-security luxury apartment in downtown Manhattan through a mobile app, paid for with an emergency fund my father had secretly given me. Money Ethan didn't know existed. The move was quick. I owned almost nothing. Ethan realized I was gone the next day. He called. I didn't answer. He texted, "Come back. Let's talk." I replied, "There's nothing to discuss. The deal continues. But I won't live there. I'll show up when I'm required to play Mrs. Right." He tried to video call me. I declined. Then his control disguised as goodwill began. He sent people to my new apartment with carefully prepared soup, said it was good for my complexion. I had security send it back. He ordered expensive preserved flower arrangements. One delivered every day. I signed for them and had the courier donate them to charity. He wrote a handwritten apology letter. Stiff and awkward. I didn't read it. I fed it straight into the shredder. I blocked every channel of communication, keeping only one work number for transactional contact. The first family dinner arrived. I showed up at the right estate on time, dressed impeccably. Ethan's gaze was complicated when he saw me. Ivy didn't bother hiding her eye roll. At the table, the old man asked questions. I answered smoothly, neither submissive nor arrogant. Ethan tried several times to put food on my plate. Each time, I calmly used the serving chopsticks to take something else first. His hand froze midair. My mother-in-law criticized my etiquette. I listened with a smile, then precisely cited a clause from an authoritative etiquette guide, politely pointing out that my conduct was fully compliant. She choked on her words, glanced at the old man, and said nothing more. From start to finish, I treated Ethan with cool politeness, distant, restrained, like a business partner I barely knew. The composure on his face cracked bit by bit. He began watching me more often. His eyes no longer held control, but irritation and a faint, unmistakable trace of panic. He realized it. I had completely removed myself, mentally and physically, from his control. Midway through dinner, the old man excused himself to rest and summoned me to his study. "Good spine, kid," he said, coughing lightly, "but backbone alone isn't enough. That boy Ethan, he's close to snapping. You need to be clear about what you want." What did I want? Freedom, dignity, control over my own life. A few days later, the old man was suddenly hospitalized. In the hospital corridor, Ethan stopped me. Dark circles under his eyes, stubble on his jaw. "Lily Chin, what do you actually want?" His voice was rough. I apologized. "I did everything I could." "What you did," I said calmly, "was compensate in your way while continuing to control." "Ethan, I don't want your apologies. I don't want your flowers. And I definitely don't want your warped affection." He took a deep breath. If I promise to respect you from now on, try to be like a normal couple?" I almost laughed. "Respect isn't something you promise, it's something you demonstrate. And we're not a normal couple. We're transaction partners. Start by honoring the baseline, non-interference in private lives." He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. After a long silence, he said, "Fine. I agree. But Grandpa hopes that's your problem. I cut in. Ethan, what you should be thinking about now isn't how to win me back. It's how to deal with a partner who's no longer under your control and no longer afraid of you. That frustrates you, doesn't it? His face went completely white. I turned and walked away. My steps were light. This time, I controlled the rhythm of the conversation. I was the one setting the rules. The balance of power had begun to tilt. I found a job at a small design studio. I relied on my college major and my portfolio. The pay wasn't high, but it covered my rent and basic expenses. I didn't tell Ethan. The studio landed a major cross-border collaboration and needed to liaise with investors. The lead representative they sent was named Victor Lee, Chinese-American, senior partner at an investment bank. At our first meeting, he was sharp, precise, and cut straight to the core. I was well prepared and answered cleanly. After the meeting, he asked me to stay behind. Ms. Chen, your proposal details are excellent, especially the localization strategy. Would you be interested in working more closely with us on this project? As a partner consultant, of course. We'll pay a consulting fee. He valued my ability, not the title of Mrs. Right. I accepted. The collaboration went smoothly. Victor was clear-minded, professional, and, most importantly, he respected boundaries. He never sent work messages after hours. He never gave flowers or gifts. Never blurred lines. What he shared were industry reports, invitations to high-value lectures, information that actually mattered. Once, we worked late refining a proposal. He ordered dinner, healthy Chinese takeout. I remember you mentioned you don't like overly heavy Western food, he said, just remembering. No extra meaning. No unnecessary words. Somehow, Ethan found out about my work with Victor. He showed up downstairs at my apartment building, waiting for me. Stay away from Victor Lee, he said darkly. His background is complicated. He's not getting close to you for simple reasons. I looked at him, almost amused. Ethan, our agreement says non-interference in private lives. Who I work with is my choice. Victor respects my professionalism instead of treating me like a caged bird. He's using you. Ethan grabbed my wrist. I shook him off hard. Using me? Ethan, everyone in this world uses each other. At least what he gives me is growth and space, things I actually need. And you? What did you give me besides binding me with my family's crisis? Humiliation? Surveillance? Or that suffocating need of yours to control everything? He had no answer. Just then, Victor's car pulled up. He stepped out, walked over, and stopped half a step beside me, forming a subtle, protective position without any physical contact. Mr. Right, Victor said calmly. Ms. Chin is an important partner in our project. If there are personal matters to discuss, I'd recommend choosing another time and place. For the sake of project efficiency. Victor didn't look at me. He showed no favoritism, purely professional. Ethan looked at him, then at me. His gaze turned completely grim, but he had no standing to explode. For the first time, he tasted what it meant to lose the right to intervene. Victor gave me a slight nod. Ms. Chin, would you like me to walk you upstairs? I shook my head. Thank you, but I'm fine. He didn't insist. He turned and drove away. Ethan stared at me. In the end, he said nothing and left. His back looked strangely defeated. Victor's presence was like a mirror. It reflected Ethan's distortion and revealed another possible dynamic between a man and a woman: equality, respect, clear boundaries. He wasn't a knight coming to save me. He was proof that I had always been capable of standing on equal ground and speaking for myself. For the first time, the power of choice lay clearly before me. Not forced acceptance of Ethan's arrangements, but my own decision of who to work with, how to live. The Wright family's birthday banquet arrived. The old man's domain. The elite gathered. As Mrs. Wright, I had to attend. Victor's investment bank was also on the guest list. I chose a minimalist black gown with impeccable tailoring, paired with small pearl studs. Understated, but commanding. As expected, Ivy showed up, dressed in bright red, arm in arm with my mother-in-law. Seeing me, she raised her voice deliberately. Well, sis-in-law, you look much more composed than you did at the wedding. Finally starting to resemble a Wright daughter-in-law. People nearby turned to look. I smiled. Thank you. You look very festive today as well. Ivy's expression stiffened. Midway through the banquet, Ivy approached with a glass of red wine and accidentally stumbled, sending the entire glass straight at me. In a split second, a figure moved faster than thought. Ethan. The wine splashed across the back of his custom suit, deep red, shocking against the fabric. At the same time, another figure stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of me. Victor. He held a napkin, but stopped when he saw Ethan had already taken the hit. The room fell silent. Every gaze snapped toward us. Ethan turned slowly. The stain on his back was humiliating, but his expression was worse. He stared at Ivy, his voice low yet carrying across the room. Apologize. Ivy froze. Brother. I didn't mean to, I said. Apologize. Ethan enunciated each word, eyes icy, to Lily Chin. Now, my mother-in-law tried to smooth things over. Ethan. Ivy didn't do it on purpose. We're family, Mom. He cut her off. Eyes never leaving Ivy. Tonight. Here. She apologizes. The pressure landed squarely on Ivy, under everyone's eyes. Her brother was forcing her, for me, for the first time this publicly. Her face flushed red. She gripped the empty glass so tightly her knuckles turned white. She looked at me, eyes full of resentment and unwillingness. I met her gaze calmly. No urging, no anger, just waiting. Finally, she forced the words out through clenched teeth. I'm sorry. Barely audible. Louder, Ethan said, so everyone can hear. Tears spilled down Ivy's face as she screamed. I'm sorry. Happy now? Then she covered her face and ran out. My mother-in-law shot me a furious look and hurried after her. A farce. Only then did Ethan turn to me. His back was a mess. In a low voice, he asked, Are you okay? I shook my head, pulled out a few napkins, and handed them to him. Thank you. But next time, there's no need. I can step aside myself. His hand paused as he took the napkins. Victor spoke then, addressing Ethan politely. Mr. Right. Would you like assistance? Ethan looked at Victor for a long moment, then at me. No. He told the crowd, Excuse me, and headed for the lounge to clean up. Whispers rippled through the room. The looks people gave me now carried curiosity and caution. Victor leaned in slightly and said quietly, You handled that very well. Then he blended back into the crowd, as if nothing had happened. I stood there, unexpectedly calm. Ethan's defense had been unexpected, but it stirred nothing in me. It felt less like protection and more like damage control, or an instinctive reaction to what he still considered his property being violated. When he'd asked, Are you okay? There'd been a trace of something in his eyes, expectation. Was he hoping I'd be moved? That I'd soften? No, I wouldn't. I was done expecting anything from him at all. The day after the birthday banquet, Victor asked to meet me. His expression was serious. Ms. Chin, he said, handing me a report. I had a friend in legal review take a third-party look at the debt restructuring agreement your father's company signed with the right group. There are several key clauses that leave significant room for legal interpretation, especially regarding enforcement and equity swaps. If handled carefully, your father's company could potentially exit early, breaking free from right control. My heart raced. I took the report, fingers trembling. Why are you helping me? I asked, looking up at him. Victor met my gaze openly. First, we're partners, your stability benefits the project. Second, I believe any cooperation should be based on fairness. Clearly, that agreement wasn't. And finally, he paused. I respect your courage in breaking free. Consider this professional support. No opportunism, no emotional strings attached, just rational analysis and assistance based on respect. I mobilized everyone I could trust, plus the top-tier legal team Victor introduced, and began working quietly. The process was complex, but progress was smoother than I expected. Ethan, distracted by the banquet and my continued indifference, didn't focus much on my father's small company. To him, it had always been a minor asset, not worth serious attention. 1 month later, the news came. The loopholes had been successfully leveraged. After paying a fraction of the original debt, Lin Enterprises officially cut ties with the right group, reclaiming all pledged assets. My father sobbed on the phone. Lily. I'm so sorry. I failed you. I've been useless, I cried too. But this time, It was relief. The heaviest shackle had broken. I would never again be threatened through my father's lifeline. I informed Ethan immediately. In his enormous office, he listened in silence, long and still. For the first time, he looked empty. "You planned this all along," he stated, not asked. "Self-preservation," I replied calmly. "That Victor Lee, he helped you," he said, emotionless. "He's my benefactor," I said deliberately. Ethan's hand, resting on the desk, twitched slightly. He understood. He had lost the last, most powerful leverage he held over me. "So, now?" he asked. "The deal is over? Our agreement has always been only the marriage," I said, looking him in the eye. "And now, this deal is nothing but a chain. Ethan, let's divorce." He didn't explode in anger immediately. He was unnervingly calm, eyes bottomless. After a long pause, he said, "Fine." He pulled open a drawer, slid a document across the desk. "The agreement's drafted. Review it. In addition to what's legally required, I'm giving you a portion of assets as a final gesture of apology." I didn't bother checking the numbers. I flipped to the last page and signed my name. Then, I removed my wedding ring and gently placed it on the agreement. "Property, let the law decide. Anything extra, I don't need it." I stood. "The lawyers will follow up. Goodbye, Ethan." I turned and walked out, not once looking back. Sunlight hit me as I left the right building. I took a deep breath. Freedom smelled sharp, but it was intoxicating. The divorce process proceeded quietly and efficiently. Ethan and I never saw each other again. The project with Victor was a resounding success. At the celebration, he raised a glass to me, eyes sincere. "Lily, you exceeded every expectation I had." Afterward, he drove me home. At my apartment building, he didn't immediately leave as usual. "There's something I want you to know," he said, calm but focused. "There's a senior position opening in London, excellent opportunity. I was the first choice." I listened quietly, but I declined. He continued, looking me in the eye. "One reason is I believe the New York market has more potential right now. Another reason," he paused, deliberate, "is that there are things and people here worth paying attention to. You, for example." No flowery words, no pressure, just facts. "You don't need to respond immediately, or feel pressured," he said. "I just think you have the right to know, to choose freely, including not choosing me." The night breeze brushed past gently. I looked at the man who had always given me space and respect. That barren place in my heart felt a steady, warm light. Not a surge of passion, but a quiet sense of being understood and supported. I nodded, softly. "I understand. Thank you for your honesty, Victor." He smiled, relief and warmth in equal measure. "You're welcome. Get some rest." He watched me enter the lobby, then turned and drove away. Not long after, a black Bentley slowly pulled up from the corner. Ethan sat inside, holding a velvet box. 2 tickets to the Caribbean. What had he planned? Apology? Reconciliation? His usual clumsy methods? Even he didn't know. He saw Victor. He saw me speaking calmly with Victor. He saw my nod and the relaxed expression he had never once allowed me. Rain began to fall, unannounced. Heavy drops pelted the windshield, blurring the lights outside and his vision. His knuckles whitened around the ticket box. His hand trembled slightly. He knew. He was completely out. Not defeated by Victor. Defeated by himself. By the man who once twisted love into control, and marriage into a cage. The car felt frozen with cold. I never saw the Bentley again. I never knew about the unsent tickets. I returned to my apartment, made a cup of tea, and stood at the window watching the rain. I felt calm. No vengeful thrill. No lingering attachment to the past. Victor's confession hadn't swept me off my feet. Instead, it clarified everything. What I needed was a healthy, equal, mutually nourishing relationship. I could take my time. I could choose. And Ethan? He was already history. The media never reported our divorce. But those who needed to know, knew. Ethan Wright's marriage failed. Reasons unknown. Whispers began circulating. Not in my concern. I was stepping into a new life. New possibilities. This time, not running. Not seeking revenge. but pursuing what I truly wanted. The final divorce negotiations took place at the law firm. Ethan and I sat at opposite ends of the long table. His legal team was extensive. Mine consisted of only one attorney, but thanks to Victor's introduction, she was a top-notch industry expert. Ethan looked a little worn, though his suit remained perfectly pressed. He hardly spoke the entire time, mostly staring at the table. The real battle was between the lawyers. Ethan's team tried to create obstacles in the property division. My lawyer, fully prepared, dismantled each point efficiently. The highlight came when my lawyer produced a document. It concerned certain trust clauses Mr. Wright set up before marriage, specifying the distribution of benefits during and after the marriage. According to these clauses, because the marriage ends in the short term due to gross misconduct, Mr. Wright himself will face a partial reversal. Some of his personal assets will be frozen or subject to delayed payment. Ethan snapped his head up, glancing at his lead attorney. His attorney's face darkened, then slowly nodded. He had forgotten, or never considered, that the complex trust, designed to maximize family benefit and mitigate risk, could now backfire on him. So, my lawyer pushed her glasses up. After factoring in marital property law, Mr. Wright's voluntary additional compensation, and the trust's reversal effects, it is clear what mess Chin is entitled to. This is the final list. The numbers on that list were fair, legal, not excessive, but enough to guarantee I could live comfortably for years and support the further growth of my career. Ethan looked from the list to me. His expression was a mix of shock, frustration, and a faint trace of realization. He understood. I had calculated everything. I was no longer the naive, struggling heiress at the wedding, helpless in his hands. I agree, he said hoarsely, signing the agreement. The media stayed silent. The Wright family's influence remained intact, but in the inner circle, everyone understood Ethan had lost on the personal front in this marriage. Ivy was sent to Europe for advanced studies, temporarily removed from the family core. My mother-in-law's attitude shifted subtly. When we met again, there was even a hint of politeness. In business, there are no eternal enemies. Grandpa never made a statement, but he tacitly allowed it all to happen. All the paperwork was complete. As I left the law firm, Ethan called after me. "Lily," he said, holding the signed agreement. "Can we still be friends?" I stopped, turned to him, and smiled. "Ethan, we were never friends." I said it and walked away. The expensive wedding ring had long been left on the table the first time we signed papers. I didn't need that symbol of chains. I only took my name, Lily Chin, and a brand new future that belonged entirely to me. I got promoted. Due to my outstanding contribution to the previous multinational project, a partner recommended me to a top design consulting firm, where I became a project lead. This time, entirely on merit. My relationship with Victor remained steady. We were friends, partners, and gradually, lovers. Not a whirlwind romance, but quiet, mutual respect and understanding. He remembered my sensitive stomach and reminded me to eat on time. I booked him massages after long workdays. We talked about work, art, travel, rarely about the past. Victor had an 8-year-old daughter, Emma. His ex-wife had passed away. He never asked me to take a mother role. The first time I met Emma, I gave her a set of sci-fi novels she liked and built Lego with her. Naturally, she called me Vivi, not aunt or mom. That was perfect. Ethan moved overseas after the divorce, handling Wright Group's European operations and seldom returning to New York. The business world began to reassess the name Lily Chin. No longer someone's wife or appendage. I became a capable, resourceful, promising professional. Those who had once mocked me at the wedding now nodded politely when they saw me. I didn't explain the past, nor did I flaunt scars. I let my professionalism and composure speak. Life slowed down. I no longer needed to remain on high alert, defending against the cold arrows of a broken marriage. I had time for fitness, reading, and learning new skills. My emotions stabilized. That quiet, internal strength that grew from peace of mind proved more powerful than any fiery emotion. I realized true victory wasn't about stepping on others, it was about living freely, fully, and comfortably. 1 year later, I heard from a mutual friend that Ethan, while on a business trip in Europe, had been injured protecting a colleague. Equipment fell, breaking his left leg. with internal injuries that required rest. He was alone in a Swiss clinic and reportedly depressed, refusing many visitors. Soon after, my former father-in-law called. His tone was unusually gentle, almost pleading. "Lily, I heard Ethan was hurt, alone abroad, and not in good spirits. You were married after all. If you have the time, could you visit him? Maybe hearing you will help." A thin veil of moral pressure. I held the phone calmly. "Uncle, thank you for letting me know. Ethan and I are divorced and living separate lives. Visiting him isn't appropriate, nor would it help. I trust the right family can provide him the best care. I wish him a speedy recovery." I declined politely but firmly. That night, Victor, Emma, and I planned a short family trip for the weekend. Emma excitedly chose the destination. I looked at them, feeling warmth and fullness in my heart. I felt no guilt. Ethan's injury was unfortunate, but it was not my responsibility, nor the focus of my life. I had long since left that shadow behind, choosing not to look back, not to carry unnecessary moral burdens, and focusing on the real warmth and happiness in front of me. That was the greatest respect I could give myself, and those I loved. A few months later, a gossip magazine known for digging into the secrets of the wealthy somehow dug up fragments and internal photos from my wedding of the century 2 years prior. They ran a full-page spread, a clear shot of Ivy slapping me and a close-up of Ethan adjusting his cufflinks with cold detachment. The headline screamed, "Cinderella's dream shattered?" Inside the right family wedding humiliation. They were trying to exploit my old pain. This time, I did not stay silent. I accepted an invitation from a reputable media outlet known for in-depth interviews. It was my first, and only, public discussion of the past since the divorce. During the interview, I didn't cry. I didn't play the victim. I didn't single anyone out for blame. I calmly recounted the facts, then stated my core perspective. That wedding made me realize something essential in any relationship. The most terrifying thing isn't the absence of love, but the absence of basic respect. No matter the background or wealth, respect is the foundation of human interaction. A relationship without respect is destined to be a painful cage. I'm grateful I walked away and learned not only to respect myself but also how to earn the respect of others. The interview went public, and the tide of public opinion instantly reversed. Sympathy shifted rapidly in my favor, but more importantly, people admired my composure and strength. I was no longer a tearful, powerless victim. I was a clear-headed, capable modern woman. Respect became a trending topic. Ivy's past misdeeds were dug up online, and she faced backlash, ultimately closing her social accounts. Ethan was labeled controlling, disrespectful, and his personal and professional reputation took a hit. And I, Lilychan, became associated with independence, clarity, and self-respect. My professional achievements after the divorce were widely reported. I had transformed from a wealthy socialite's discarded wife into a positive example of female empowerment. Women's organizations began inviting me to speak. My commercial value rose accordingly. Companies sought to collaborate with me not because of my past title, but because of my skills and the positive influence my reputation brought. The financial world, ever practical, began praising me as bold and visionary. For the first time, the narrative was entirely in my hands. I turned humiliation into a stepping stone for personal value through calmness and rationality. I married Victor on a quiet autumn day. No sprawling estate. We went to a secluded coastal town in California, to a small, pure white community chapel. No media, no elaborate ceremony, no crowd of guests, just a few closest family members and friends. Victor's daughter, Emma, was our flower girl. I wore a simple silk gown. He wore a comfortable linen suit. We exchanged vows, our own words, brief and sincere. Then the rings, simple platinum bands, engraved inside with our initials and wedding date. After placing the ring on my finger, Victor held my hand, looked me in the eye, and softly said, "You are enough as you are. You don't need any extra proof. I love you because you are you." Tears fell, unbidden, not from sadness, but from the release and happiness of being fully accepted and affirmed. No one compared this wedding to the one 2 years ago. There was no comparison. I didn't need grandeur to prove anything. No diamonds to weigh down insecurity. I only needed this person beside me, someone who understood my past, respected my present, and looked forward to our future. Life after marriage was warm and simple. We worked together, cared for Emma together, ran our little home together. We argued sometimes, but always resolved things quickly. Respect and equality were as natural as the air we breathed. I was no longer anyone's Mrs. Right, nor anyone's vengeful ex. I was Lily Chin, Victor's wife, Emma's Vivi, my parents' daughter, my company's project lead, the absolute protagonist of my own life. Happiness, it turned out, could really be this simple and grounded. It didn't need validation from anyone, it only needed to be genuinely felt. Sometimes, I still think of that long red carpet, covered in white roses, but it is no longer a nightmare. I suddenly understood, the end of that red carpet wasn't the entrance to happiness. It was an exit. A brutal exit that made me see reality, cut through illusions, and force me to grow. I walked out of it, stumbling, battered, but because I walked through it, I found the real sunlight, and learned to truly walk. I no longer hate Ethan. Hatred is a binding, to a strong emotional leash. He no longer has any place in my emotional world. His regrets, his downfall, his realizations, they are none of my concern. Those are lessons he must face himself. I gained something far more valuable, complete freedom of choice. The choice to work, to love, to live, to define my own worth. I gained dignity that cannot be easily destroyed, rooted in my abilities and internal stability. I gained a stable, healthy love, not so fiery it burns, but warm enough to illuminate the path ahead. Most importantly, I gained a complete, independent, and self-accepting self. The story's ending contains no act of forgiveness, because true strength and liberation make forgiveness unnecessary. I don't need to forgive anyone. I only need to live my life fully, and I am. The end of the red carpet was an exit, and I walked through it, into a life that is truly mine, open, vast, and free.